Good morning. It is day 33 of the Diddy trial. It's verdict watch day. The judge is in the process right now of giving the instructions to the jurors, and then the case will be turned over to them for deliberation. It is a lot going on this morning. A lot going on, definitely by way of opinions. I was listening to some folks this morning who are like really up in arms about this trial and what they feel is a disservice or injustice that's being done to Diddy. So there's people who are very upset on that end. There are people who are very upset on the idea that he might get off on anything. So there are a lot of emotions surrounding this trial, this verdict, and yeah. So when this verdict comes in, and people are predicting that it might take 2 or 3 days for us to get a verdict. You know, they say the quicker a verdict comes in, the more likely it's a guilty verdict. We'll see. They are running up against the July 4th holiday, so I don't know. I've heard people talk about when a jury is in a position where they're up against a holiday that normally gives them incentive to kind of come to some type of consensus. So we don't know if that will impact how the jury moves forward with deliberations, but it's a lot going on. So just as a reminder, the 5 counts that the jury will have to decide the fate of Diddy, guilty or not guilty, are: 1, the RICO, which is the racketeering conspiracy, and there's some predicate acts under there. That's where you have the arson, the kidnapping, the bribery, witness tampering, and a few other things. That's where they only have to say guilty of 2 of those things under the RICO charge for them to be able to convict him or be able to find him guilty. I think, in addition to that, and we'll see what the judge says when he reads these instructions to them. My understanding is that yes, could I check off these 2 things as on the list of predicate acts, but excuse me, it has to be in support of a criminal enterprise. So we'll see how that goes. There are 2 s-trafficking charges as well. One specific to Jane and one specific to Cassie. And then there are 2 transportation for the oldest profession in the world, because YouTube doesn't like us saying certain words. There are 2 counts of that too. So that is what is before the jury, or will be before the jury today, to make a decision on. I do not envy these jurors at all. If what I'm predicting at this point is that the jury is going to have a hard time coming to a consensus on the RICO charge. That might be I don't know, that might even be the one where he gets a not guilty, or that might be the one where it's definitely maybe a hung jury. The other charges, I think this could come down to a split decision. And I say a split decision because these 4 remaining charges, 2 for s-trafficking and 2 for transportation for the oldest profession in the world, one is specific to Cassie. 2 of those are specific to Cassie, and 2 of those are specific to Jane. I think that could result in the jury giving pretty much a split decision. I think how the testimony might be received, might have been received, the testimony and the evidence for Jane might be very different than what it is for Cassie, in part because Cassie's testimony is also supported by the videotape. And we've had so much conversation during this trial about, well, yeah, if you were charging him for DV, it's not even debatable. He clearly committed DV, but that's not one of his charges. However, they are using this tape, as we saw in this trial. I don't even know how many times they played it over and over and over, to try to show force, to try to show coercion, to try to show that, even in that particular incident at the Intercontinental Hotel, uh, there was a FO happening that day. Cassie was attempting to leave. We saw what was on the tape. We saw him dragging her back towards the room. And so the government would have us, would want to have the jury and say, even if you don't believe on any other time, based off of Cassie's testimony, that she was necessarily against these FOs, this is one where we want you to use your common sense and pretty much answer, what does it look like to you? So I don't know what, I honestly do not know what this jury is going to do. The only thing that would make my jaw drop on the floor at this point is if he were to be acquitted of all charges, because I do not see him being acquitted of all charges. I would be shocked if that happened. Shocked if that happened. Mistrial. There are a lot of people who believe that this is going to end up being a mistrial, that the jury will not be able to come to consensus on these charges. So that might be a thing. There are also folks who believe that if Diddy is convicted for whatever charges he's convicted of, he won't be in prison long, because they believe that the president will end up pardoning him. And I actually believe that as well. So we're going to take a look at a few things this morning. We're going to definitely see what exactly was the jury, what instructions did they get from the judge. We'll definitely do that. Then we're going to look at a little bit of footage from when Diddy was last in this predicament, which was 24 years ago. 24 years ago, he was in a similar predicament as far as waiting on a jury to make a decision on his fate. And, back then in 2001, he was acquitted of all charges. His artist Shine wasn't so lucky. A lot of folks say Shine took the fall for Diddy. Shine says he took the fall. And I think he spent close to 10 years in prison for what happened at the club that night. So it's a lot to cover. It's a lot to just sit here and wait. Once the jury gets it's a lot to just think about. What we're going to do again this morning is we're going to stay on live at least until the jury starts their deliberation. And then we will, of course, come back if there's any decision that comes back. If a decision came back today, that will not look good for Diddy, I do not believe. But we will definitely come back whenever a decision has been made. We will definitely also come back if there's any information about maybe something that the jury is requesting or whatever that seems pretty important. We may pop back in for that as well. So I was looking at some information that a journalist who's in the courtroom provided about, I think it was Friday. And it was very interesting what she shared, because she indicates that during the trial, Diddy had a pretty engaging demeanor. He was, passing notes to his attorneys. He was nodding, which, of course, if you remember, the judge advised him to stop nodding so much before he has to participate in his trial from outside the courtroom. Because the prosecution had an issue with that. They said it felt like that could be considered testimony. But at any rate, I thought it was interesting to note that Jewel Manzi, who has been keeping a stream going with the trial, she made a note on Friday about Diddy's demeanor. and she said that Sean Combs had been animated during Agniphilos. I always mess up this man's name. Agniphilos. Thank you. Agniphilos' closing arguments, fully engaged, nodding in agreement to some points. But after the rebuttal from prosecutor Comey, his hands shook as he picked up his things from the table before him. Yeah, I get it. I get why this would be um nerve-wracking. I I cannot imagine. Because basically your life is on the line. Your freedom at this point has come down to decision day. So I definitely understand why somebody's hands would be shaking at in this moment. So let's take a quick look. We're going to jump into what instructions right now are being given by the judge to the jury. And you know, he, from what I understand, he said he was going to try to make it entertaining, but it's still legal stuff. So I don't know how entertaining. I think that's going to be one of the struggles that the people will have with the RICO charge and perhaps even some of the other charges. It, it seems very complex, especially when you have a case that is not a straightforward type RICO case. Meaning there's no clear criminal enterprise, in my opinion. There's no business that was furthered, no criminal enterprise that was furthered by the activities such as the FOs and all of that. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but let me not go on about that. Let's just jump in and see literally what is the judge advising the jury. So I'm going to pull that up here, and let's just hold on one second. Make this a little bigger for your screen in case you're reading along. All right. So let's get into it. All right. So the judge this morning said, I'll read to the jury. He said, I'll read you the charge. It's long, but I'll try to make it interesting. You have now heard all of the evidence in this case, as well as the final arguments of the parties. I will instruct you on the law as I give it to you. The evidence is the testimony, the answers, and the exhibits. Arguments are not evidence. You are the sole and exclusive arbiters of the facts. What is a reasonable doubt is based on your common sense. Now, if my life was on the line and I knew these 12 people had to decide my fate based on their common sense, I would be worried. Because as the saying goes, common sense ain't common. So the judge says it's based on your common sense after carefully weighing all the evidence. You just weigh each witness's credibility, the truth, and importance of their testimony. Size him or her up. You must decide. Sean Combs has been formally charged in an indictment. An indictment is not evidence. Count one, charges from 2004 to 2024, a racketeering enterprise. Count two, from 2009 to 2018, s-trafficking of Cassie. Count three, from 2009 to 2018, transporting individuals, including but not limited to Ventura, for purposes of the oldest profession in the world. Count four, from 2019 to 2024, s-trafficking of Jane. Count five, from 2019 to 2024, transporting individuals, including but not limited to Jane, for purposes of the oldest profession in the world. Each count is separate. For attempt, the U.S. must show intent and a substantial step taken. Mere intention does not amount to an attempt. Aiding and abetting means knowingly doing some act to aid or encourage a crime to be committed. For RICO, the U.S. must prove that from 2004 to 2024, there was an agreement between two or more individuals for a racketeer enterprise that impacted interstate commerce. That the defense joined and committed the defendant, that the defendant joined and committed at least two predicate acts. The U.S. must prove a mutual understanding to corporate. You may infer its existence from the circumstances of this case. Actions may speak louder than words. You may consider the acts of all of those you find to be participants. If you find that the Combs enterprise existed, you must find whether it continued in a substantially similar form from 2004 to 2024. And I'm assuming he must mean if you find that the Combs criminal enterprise existed. The people can change. As to the defendant being a member, he had to know of the existence of the criminal enterprise. The U.S. alleges 8 predicate acts: kidnapping, arson, bribery, witness tampering, forced labor, s-trafficking, transportation for the oldest profession in the world, intent to distribute narcotics. The U.S. has to prove 2 offenses within 10 years. Okay. And here just more and more about the charges themselves. So let's see. I'm sure there's more. The judge had more to say than that. So let me just go back up and see where we are. Those predicate acts, though, those are the ones that are listed under count 1 for RICO. Just again, those 8 charges are kidnapping, arson, bribery, witness tampering, forced labor, s-trafficking, transportation for the oldest profession in the world, intent to distribute narcotics. So if they're going to find him guilty on RICO, they've got to be able to check the box on guilty on 2 of those predicate acts, and that they have to believe they were in support of a criminal enterprise, which to me is the stumbling block to find a guilty on this on that charge. So we'll see if the defense or if the jury felt the same way. So let's see if we have any other update here. Just one second. Okay. Yes. All right. The judge said kidnapping does not occur if the victim consented. Consent may be withdrawn. Arson under California law means the conspirator set fire for cause or caused the affair, willfully or maliciously. Bribery of a witness under California law requires that a conspirator gave or promised to give a bribe to a person giving or about to give information to law enforcement to unlawfully influence it. Now, when we had the security folks, Eddie Garcia, testify about the money exchange between him and Diddy and some of his peers at his job for this tape, it was not stated at that time that excuse me, that the security's intention was to turn this over to the police. It was not stated by any of the testimony we heard anyway that the security was saying as part of protocol we have to turn this over to police, and Diddy was like, no, give me that tape and I'll give you $100,000. We did not hear that. So we'll see, if the jury, when they're considering the bribery charge, and the argument that the defense put up is that he wasn't trying to avoid criminal charges for bribery. They said he was just trying to protect his reputation. He was not getting in the way of them turning this over to law enforcement. There was no assumption that they were even going to do that. So we'll see how that shakes out with the jury. Let's see. For witness tampering violation, it does not matter if the subject to the threat is in fact fearful. Only a threat is required, but it must be knowing. For forced labor, requires use of force or use of force of physical restraint. Now, did he do that? I don't recall anybody saying that he forced them to work by physically restraining them. A person may withdraw consent and it may become forced labor. S-trafficking will have the same definition as in counts 2 and 4, and transportation to engage in the oldest profession the same as count 3 and 5. Next is distribution of narcotics, including this long word that you see here, knowingly and intentionally. Distribution means actual transfer to deliver to another person. For possession, physical custody is not needed. Control is enough. I tell you, they're not making it. I guess it's just how it works and how they have to describe these concepts and rules and so on. But I just don't think this language and everything, they don't make it easy on lay people to kind of cut through all of that and know, okay, what are you telling me to stand? The judge said RICO has a 5-year statute of limitation. You must find that it continued past 2019. If you find that the government had not proved this beyond a reasonable doubt, you must find the defendant not guilty. Okay. Let them know, judge, guilty. Somebody said easy, continued up to 2024. Somebody else said the judge is flying through it. This is his version of making it easier to understand. I'm telling you, because I feel sorry for the jury. What somebody else said, not guilty, free Diddy. Somebody else said, I'm understanding all of this. So they're not confused by what the judge is saying at all. Deliberation should be 10 minutes. Well, if it's 10 minutes, if you go by what folks say, that means guilty, that they came to a guilty verdict if they're able to go in and come out that fast. Let's see. This is must see TV. What are the secrets? Where are the secret tunnels? Where are the minors? Where are the tapes he blackmailed politicians with? Where are the killings? Wait, is Diddy just a cuck and a bad boyfriend? Please no, my whole worldview where Diddy is the biggest threat to the country is destroyed. There's a lot of people who feel that way. There are a lot of people who feel that way, that this is not about RICO. RICO was a stretch. It was an overcharge by the government. And we are about to find out if the jury sees it the same way. Okay. The government never promised you any of that for this case. Stop listening to every blogger trying to make a living for themselves. Okay, I don't know what that means. And what's wrong with a blogger's trying to make a living for themselves? All right, so let's go back up and see if we have anything else from the judge, because we ended with the RICO has a 5-year statute of limitation. You must find that it continued past 2019. If you find that the government had not proved this beyond a reasonable doubt, you must find the defendant not guilty. Okay. So we're just waiting at this point for that to be updated. But while we are, I'll check another source for us just to see where we are there. But yeah, I can't imagine how Diddy's kids as well, especially his daughters. I'm assuming they're probably in court today, but I just know they have to be going through hell. I saw them just even out and about trying to shop, and they were just, press was everywhere and was asking them questions about how was their dad holding up and all of that. So yeah, that's pretty bad. All right. So while we wait for more instructions from the from the judge. Ha ha ha. Let's see if we have any other update. Okay. So I think one thing that we know we've already seen, especially as we've gone through this trial, is that sometimes CNN will have updates that add a little more context than what we're seeing on the threads from people who are actually in the courtroom. This morning, they've only just posted that the judge detailed the 8 alleged racketeering acts for jury in the Combs trial. And I can share that with you all so we can just see if they added any extra context to how they worded it. But the judge is currently defining the 8 underlying acts the jury can potentially find were committed by Sean Diddy Combs or a co-conspirator. To convict Combs of racketeering conspiracy, the jury must find that he agreed with at least one other member of his alleged enterprise to commit 2 qualifying crimes within 10 years of each other. The indictment charges Combs with conspiring with co-conspirators to commit kidnapping, arson, robbery, forced labor, transportation to engage in the oldest profession in the world, s-trafficking, witness tampering, and possession with the intent to distribute controlled substances. The government alleges that Combs conspired with his enterprise to commit this pattern of racketeering activity from at least 2004 through 2024. The racketeering conspiracy is charged as count 1 in the indictment. The judge will still instruct the jury on counts 2 through 5. Each juror on the main panel will keep a copy of the complex and lengthy instructions during deliberations. Well, that's good. They get a handout because I could not imagine if they did not. Wow. This is whew. Okay. So I'll check quickly just to see if we have any other update after the RICO update on X. So this might be a good time to go back in time a little bit. And at the top of this live, I said, 24 years ago, Diddy found himself in a very similar situation. Charges were different, but it was still the same situation as far as he was having to wait for a jury to decide his fate. So let's take a look back at an interview he had in 2021 where he describes his experience. I'm sorry, in 2001, when he described his experience as far as waiting to know his fate.
What was it like for you standing there waiting for that motion to come in? I mean, it was a long time.
I mean, it's been like a year and a half. It was like a year and a half with this, with this luggage, walking around with this, and people not understanding, not knowing the truth, and so it felt good that it was finally coming to an end. And, I felt confident, but at the same time, it was a scary situation because you have, 12 people who hold the fate of your life. But, I put it in God's hands, and, he brought me out of it, and I give all glory to God. I'm forever grateful.
That's got to be the hardest thing to be waiting there to see,
Yeah.
That judge reading that.
It was definitely like one of the hardest years of my life, overall, like going through this and personal stuff. It's just like, I can relate. I know there's millions of people out there that can relate to like those months or those years when it just seems like everything is just going wrong. It's just like everything beyond what the people know about, all of the extra stuff that people don't even know about, or people that are close to you don't even know about. And it just sometimes it just feels like, you want to give up, but you got people that you're blessed to have people around you that, tell you to keep going and hold your head up, and it's going to be all right. Keep your faith strong. That's what I did. And I'm just, it's been a very learning experience. It's been a life-changing experience.
Well, that was Diddy in 2001 talking about his experience. And I wish it had been a learning experience, because if it had been, perhaps 24 years later, he would not have found himself in the situation that he's in now. And I think I have another clip that I pulled from 2001 where he was acquitted of all charges. And if you remember back then too, one of his attorneys was the famous, I won't say infamous, the famous Johnny Cochran. R.I.P. Johnny Cochran. So let's take a look at what were his comments after he was acquitted in 2001 of charges that could have landed him in prison for a good amount of time. Then back then, Shine took the fall for those charges. But here's what he said when he was acquitted in 2001.
Just want to. I just want to say I give all glory to God. I give all glory to God. If it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be able to walk out here to talk to y'all today. I want to thank my mother for being by my side every day, coming to court me every day. I want to just thank God for just being here for me and just protecting me. My lawyers bringing me these 2 great lawyers, 3 great lawyers. I just, and all the people, all my fans, my staff, all the people in New York, everybody that's prayed for me all over the world and sent me prayers and messages. Thank you for your prayers. You're giving me support. The people in New York, just when I'm walking in the streets, just telling me to keep my head up. And I'm just so grateful today. And my whole family. I'm just really right now, I'm just very emotional. I'm at really a loss. I'm very emotional. I feel blessed.
And that was in 2001, where he was acquitted of, I think it was a gun charge, and there was another charge involved as well. But hold on, let's take another listen.
We love you, son. We love you. Thank you, baby. Thank you, baby.
So there you have it. That was in 2001. He said it was life changing. He said, of course, he thanked God. He was relieved, and we all know that had to be true. I mean, you could have faced a lot of years in prison. Your boy ended up serving the time for you. Okay, but instead of you learning from that and from that experience and making some changes, we have a laundry list. Other things, they didn't end up in court, in criminal court, but there's a laundry list of documented things that Diddy got into even after this acquittal in 2001, where you just had to know that he felt as if with his money, his power, his fame, that he could get out of anything. And so here he is, pardon me, 24 years later, going through another trial. And this time, if he's convicted of these charges, it could be a life sentence. And so it's just I don't know if tragic is the right word. We'll take a look at this clip too. But it is definitely just one of those tragic tales of like fame, power, money, not learning, getting more than chances than even maybe a lot of people even get. You didn't just have a second chance. You had a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, count it up. You had all those chances and you really didn't do anything to change like how you move, how you behave. And I'm saying this outside of where you stand on these charges, because at the end of the day, his behavior and his activities got him in this situation today, right? It got him in this situation today. Do I think the government overcharged him with charging a RICO? I definitely think they overcharged with the RICO charge. All the other charges and all the other things, and even though them even trying to go after him by using RICO and the predicate acts and all of that, at the end of the day, he had a pattern of behavior, including the violence with women, all of that led him to this moment. So when you think about it that way, it's hard to feel bad for him. Now, I never, especially as an African American, I never want to see the justice system twist themselves into a pretzel to apply a charge that really doesn't apply to the situation. And that's how I feel about that RICO charge. But all the other things, even if they had I guess they couldn't charge him separately for arson and kidnapping and bribery because of the statute of limitations. So that's why they went with RICO, because they wanted to be able to pull those things in, and they couldn't without going RICO because the statute of limitations had passed. But you don't then, in my opinion, the government should not have overcharged him with RICO. They would have just had to say we can't do that. We just have to go after the s-trafficking and the transportation for the oldest profession in the world charges. Because at the end of the day, with the RICO charge, you ultimately have to show, or this has always been the understanding, you ultimately have to show that those predicate acts, those criminal activities that you're listing under RICO, where the jury only has to check the boxes for 2 in order for you to be found guilty, you have to show that that is in support of a criminal enterprise. So even now, here at the point of jury deliberations, I ask you all again, what is the criminal enterprise? What is it? What is the criminal enterprise? We see crimes, we see reckless behavior, we see a very freaky or kink lifestyle, we see all of that. But as it relates to count 1, the RICO charge, what is the criminal enterprise? And for me, I don't feel as if I've seen that brought forth by the government at all. They've tried it, but I wasn't convinced that there was a criminal enterprise that was being supported by this stuff that Diddy was doing. So there's that. But anyway, let's take a look at this footage. And this footage, I think, is also from 2001 and after he was acquitted. So let's just take a quick look.
How y'all doing this morning? Excuse me.
We think this morning's courtroom proceeding went well for us, and we got to say that which we wanted to say on the record, and we're ready to proceed to trial. We're going to win this trial. It has nothing to do with Mr. Bogdanos or me. The facts are going to set Mr. Combs free because he's not guilty here, and that's all that matters is the facts.
Well, we're under a gag order. We can't talk about that. We want a fair trial. We'd ask the press to do what they can to make sure we get a fair trial. We'll be down there at the end of this trial. We can talk about all this. And, you know, it's tough when one is innocent of a charge. You have people popping up all the time with specious statements. So we want a fair trial. We want the case to be tried up there. We want this case to start.
And for any younger viewers, Johnny Cochran, RIP Johnny Cochran, he was also the lawyer during the O.J. Simpson case for O.J. Simpson. The famous "if it don't fit, you must have quit" when O.J. tried to put on those gloves and they didn't fit. He was O.J.'s attorney, or one of his attorneys, his primary attorney, and that's where most of us, especially those of us a bit older, that's where we, of course, know Johnny Cochran from.
Start next Wednesday, get it resolved as soon as possible.
So what are you still feeling confident in?
Mr. Combs feels very confident. Mr. Combs is not guilty. He is focused. He wants the trial to start, and he is confident that when it's over, we'll be standing out here telling you that he's just been acquitted. Thank you very much.
And that is what happened in this case. And if you notice, even at the beginning of this clip, did you notice how Diddy just kind of just strutted in the court? I mean, just strutted in, confident, you know, and maybe that was, I don't know, good PR maybe. But he did get off. He did get off in 2001. He was acquitted of all charges. Is he going to be that lucky this time around? Is there any chance that he's going to be that lucky this time around? to be acquitted of all charges. Maybe, maybe he will be lucky, because if he is acquitted, you better believe it is luck. It is definitely luck. Okay, let's see if we have any further updates. Just one second here, because the judge was supposed to take about an hour to give the instructions to the juror before to the jury. I'm sorry. So I think he's might be a little bit over an hour at this point. And so let's see, maybe he's about to wrap it up and hand it off to the jury. So let me just check and see if we have any update from other sources. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't see anything else at this point. So we are still very much waiting. And I don't know why. This is one thing I will not miss about this following this trial. It's kind of, you get tired of waiting. Okay, so we do have a few updates from Inner City Press. So I'm gonna click back over. But yeah, I can tell you this morning, boy, people, I was on another person's show this morning, and when I tell you, the hosts on that show, they are 10 toes down on Diddy needs to be acquitted. RICO was an overcharge. They even go as far though to say not only was RICO an overcharge, where's the accountability for Cassie? Where's the accountability for Jane? They said Cassie was a co-conspirator, and actually that's not the first time I heard that. When these charges first came out and people knew that she was a part of arranging some of the FOs, I did hear some people, especially on some of the discussion lives, talking about the fact that she was a co-conspirator. So there's a lot of feelings. There are a lot of feelings about Diddy, about Cassie, about Jane. I can tell you though, from what I've seen, Jane seems to get the worst of it. She definitely seems to get the worst of it. I can tell you my take on Jane after hearing her testimony and seeing the other evidence that was presented, very specific to her. I definitely felt at the end of all of that Jane was not complicit, that she wasn't. In other words, I didn't feel like Jane was a victim. Definitely not as it relates to the FOs. It felt like to me that she was, based off of what she said and the evidence that was presented, it seemed to me that Jane was all in. So I think the jury too is, when they have those 4 charges, 2 of which apply to Jane and 2 of which apply to Cassie, that might end up being a split decision. And I think the only cover that really elevates Cassie in this situation, if you want to call it elevation, is that videotape. That videotape is going to garner Cassie extra sympathy. It's definitely going to garner her perhaps more credibility with the jury. They won't feel as if they have to, like, her word versus his word as much with Cassie because of that videotape, even with the things they heard from Cassie, even talking about how she enjoys FOs, how she was requesting FOs. She did say at one point she really loves FOs when they both want it. So who knows what the jury might read into that. But that videotape to me, definitely probably for the jury. That's it, definitely probably, yeah. That videotape probably for the jury makes them lean more favorably towards the government as it relates to any charges specific to Cassie. All right. Jane to me is a completely different story. A completely different story. And we're going to see if the jury sees it the same way. Okay, so let's see. We left off here, I think, on counts 3 and 5, knowingly transporting or arranging for the transportation an individual for purposes of an act of the oldest profession in the world. Buying or arranging a ticket is enough. See, let's go back up a little bit. I think the jury could definitely find a way to find him guilty on that. On s-trafficking, counts 2 and 4, transport means to take or convey from one place to another. Reckless disregard satisfies the statute. The deliberate closing of eyes. You must be unanimous on at least one specific instance of s-trafficking. Okay? So that means out of all you heard from Jane and all you heard from Cassie, you now have 2 s-trafficking charges, 1 per person. No matter how many times they saw footage of these FOs, saw text messages, saw emails, listened to voice messages, some of it may have been, okay, I'm down with it. Some of it may have been, no, I'm not. Some of it may have been however the jury perceived it. The judge is letting them know, you must be unanimous that out of all the things you heard about Jane on s-trafficking, you must be unanimous that at least one of those times was against her will and it was s-trafficking. Same thing with Cassie. The judge is saying on the s-trafficking as it relates to Cassie, regardless of what you've heard, regardless of what you've seen, regardless of, it seems like sometimes you were down, sometimes you were not. You must be unanimous that at least one of those times was against her will, and that specific instance was s-trafficking in order to convict. I don't know. I don't know if Diddy's going to be able to escape that one. On counts 3 and 5, knowingly transporting or arranging for the transportation an individual for purposes of an act of the oldest profession in the world. Buying or arranging a ticket is enough. The oldest profession in the world does not need to be the main purpose. Now, counts 3 and 5, there's 2 of those. Trafficking for the oldest profession in the world, or transportation for the oldest profession in the world. 1 for Cassie and 1 for Jane. I think Diddy is most vulnerable to these charges, counts 3 and 5. The transportation of an individual for purposes of an act of the oldest profession in the world. Buying or arranging a ticket is enough. The oldest profession in the world does not need to be the main purpose. I think the jury's going to find him guilty on counts 3 and 5. I think that if anything in this trial is a slam dunk, it's counts 3 and 5. I think they're going to find him guilty of that. Okay. The judge said the oldest profession in the world is engaging S activity for money or its equivalent. You must be unanimous on at least one specific act of transportation with intent to engage in the oldest profession in the world. On venue, the U.S. must prove at least one act occurred in the Southern District of New York, 8 counties. Okay. Let's see. The judge said we are in the home stretch and weighing expert testimony. You should not accept it just because I allowed it. The testimony of government officials are not worth are not worth of more or less weight than any other witnesses. Okay, I see how he wrote that, but let me just rephrase that. He's basically saying the testimony of government officials does not carry any more or less weight than any other witnesses, which is, I think, is a good call out. So don't think just because we had 4 Homeland Security investigation agents up here, or just because we had quote unquote summary witnesses, which are, I think, maybe like a step up above paralegal, maybe, working for the government, that they're somehow like official and you should be able to just take their whatever they said to the bank. You still have to consider what they said, how you feel about it, just like you would any other witness. So that's interesting. Again, I tell you that if Diddy is going to be convicted with certainty of anything, in my opinion, it is count 3 and 5. It would be counts 3 and 5. Knowingly transporting or arranging for the transportation of an individual for purposes of an act of the oldest profession in the world. Buying or arranging a ticket. We saw a lot of testimony around that. We saw receipts around arranging tickets and flights and hotel rooms and all of that with these workers. So the oldest profession in the world does not need to be the main purpose. So, like I said, RICO, in my opinion, not guilty. Okay. Counts 3 and 5, the jury's going to find him guilty. Now, the only way I feel like the jury will not find him guilty on counts 3 and 5, because the counts 3 and 5 to me are the slam dunk charges. They are the slam dunk charges. Knowingly transporting or arranging for the transportation of an individual for purposes of an act of the oldest profession in the world. Buying or arranging a ticket is enough. The oldest profession in the world does not need to be the main purpose. Okay, that's a slam dunk. The only way I think that Diddy does not get convicted of these charges, or it gets hung trial status on these charges, is because if somebody on the jury says, well, I just don't see these people as like victims. I mean, they would have to basically rebel against the letter of the law and the evidence that they heard in order to not find him guilty. The thing is, we've seen that happen more times than once, especially we have seen a lot of cases where a jury has rebelled against the letter of the law just because they didn't want to send somebody to jail for something. You understand what I'm saying? So maybe that could happen in counts 3 and 5. We'll see. But again, to me, counts 3 and 5, those 2 counts are slam dunk charges, in my opinion. Let's see if we have any other update at this point. Okay, so the judge also said witnesses given immunity should be examined with greater something that ordinary witness then. Okay, so I think this person meant to say witnesses given immunity should be examined greater than ordinary witnesses. Charts and summaries, demonstrative aids are not evidence and will not be available to you in the jury room. You know, that's a trip, because they spent, I know, at least 2 boring days having the government having on the stand people with these charts, kind of like paralegals, and they just say, oh yeah, there was a text message here. So you went through all of that, and then you're telling them, okay, they're just demonstrative aids, they're not evidence, and they won't be available to you in the jury room. Then why you made those people suffer through all that crap? And they're going to take it into consideration, but yet they can't refer to anything. That's wild to me. The judge said certain witnesses were permitted to be identified by pseudonyms. That should bear on your evaluation of credibility. The defendant had no responsibility to testify, and he did not. You must not attach any significance to that. Okay. The judge says voluntary intoxication may negate the intent requirement of RICO predicates. Well, now this is interesting now. Voluntary intoxication may negate the intent requirement of RICO predicates. So Diddy's defense team, tried to call out that everybody was high, and that a lot of times when these instances were going down, they were on, drugs was a part of the lifestyle for these people who were on the stand as witnesses. Even the employees were popping stuff, most of them. So it's interesting that the voluntary intoxication may negate the intent requirement of RICO predicates. Uncalled witness. You have heard names of people not called as witnesses. Each side had an equal opportunity to call them. Do not speculate or consider this. This is also interesting because you know who's top of mind? Diddy's right-hand person, Christina Coram, also known as KK. Diddy's security, especially D-Rock, who was all up and through all of this testimony and evidence, and we didn't see him at all on the witness stand. Now, I believe we did not see D-Rock or KK because if the government can get this RICO conviction on Diddy, I believe they're going to charge them as co-conspirators. Okay. But the judge is simply saying just because those people that you heard their name, you heard KK Christina Coram name mentioned 1,000,000 times. She wasn't called to testify, and you should not look at that like one thing or another. You should not consider that. Okay. The judge says any notes you took are only for you. No outside reading. You are to consider only what was presented within the four walls of this courtroom. You may not communicate about this case, including on X, Instagram, or YouTube. If you see this, tell my deputy. Now, I sure hope a juror has not gotten this far in the process, and then they start doing that. I mean, that would be crazy. You didn't spend all this time and you're going to do something to get yourself kicked out of the off of the jury. Let's see. Somebody says, I am pro-justice, but acknowledge that there was bias with the expert testimony. Her descriptions were valid, but she let the defense get to her and made some statements that cooked her on bias against men. Well, we'll see if that resonated that way with the jury. We'll see if that resonates that way with the jury. And we're going to see that rather quickly because I think we're going to have a jury. I think we're going to have a verdict before July 4th. All right. The judge said, do not be swayed by bias, including implicit bias. How do humans do that? That's a hard ask for humans, even when they think they're not doing it. These hidden thoughts can impact what we hear and see and how we remember it. You will now retire to consider the case. Each of you must decide the case for himself or herself after deliberating. Your verdict must be unanimous. If you are divided, do not report the specifics. Your foreperson will send out any notes and any verdict. Any communication with the court should be in writing. Oh boy, y'all. I think this is it. I think this is it. Okay, the judge said the alternates do not have to be here, but give your phone number to my deputy. You may be called to replace a juror. You will be called when a verdict is reached. My. If I was an alternate and had to sit through this, 8 weeks of this trial, I kind of would feel cheated that I can't be in the jury room for deliberation. I guess I can understand why, but I feel like, okay, we won't say anything, but can we just at least sit in here and listen to what they say? I mean, after all this time. But let's see if that's it. I think he may have turned it over to them at this point. Mm. Someone said, is the government after a rich, self-made black billionaire, or or are they seeking justice for women whose rights were abrogated by a black billionaire? Your thoughts? Someone else said, please find him guilty. See you in a week because this is going to be one long deliberation. Someone else said, okay, enough yapping, Your Honor. Let's go. And now we pray that justice prevail. Yeah. Somebody said guilty by the end of the day, followed right by someone else who said free Diddy. Yeah, because praying that justice will prevail. Some people are going to feel like when this verdict comes in that justice was served, and then there are going to be some people who feel as if it wasn't, depending on what the outcome is, right? So I just want to make sure that he has officially. Okay, so I'm seeing that the judge has asked the jury to choose a 4-person. Wow. Wow, Diddy TikTok. Tick, 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 tock. Ciao. We are. I'm just waiting before I end this live just to make sure that the jury is off to start deliberating. Are you going to be one of those people that if Diddy is found guilty, that you're going to be a part of the mission to change that? Or will you be one of the persons saying, good, he got what he deserved? Or are you one of the people who's like, I got other stuff happening in my life, and child, I don't have time to entertain any of this? Maybe you're that person. I kind of felt like that this morning. I hesitated to even get on live because let's just say life be life and life be lifing. All right. I am going to check and see what update we may have because I just want to hear that the jury has left. That's what I want to see now. Yeah, we're still waiting. We are still waiting. Another person put on her Twitter feed, it's written a little bit different than Inner City Press, but she said, the judge said, if you come across anything related to the case, report it to my deputy immediately. Above all, guard against bias, including implicit bias. These unconscious thoughts can affect how we interpret information, even when we don't realize it. Yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell people to check their implicit bias because they don't normally even know that's what they're doing. All right. I just want to see that the jury has been sent off to deliberate. And I'm still at the point where the judge asked for the jury to choose a 4-person. That was 4 minutes ago, according to CNN. So while we are waiting, let's take another look. When Diddy was acquitted in 2001, and how he recalled how scary that situation was back then. "24 years later, he's in a worse predicament than he was in 2001, actually."
What was it like for you standing there waiting for that motion to come in? I mean, it was a long time.
I mean, it's been like a year and a half. It was like a year and a half with this, with this luggage, walking around with this, and people not understanding, not knowing the truth. you know, and so it felt good that it was finally coming to an end. And, you know, I felt confident, but at the same time, it was a scary situation. You have, 12 people who hold the fate of your life. But, I put it in God's hands, and, he brought me out of it, and I give all glory to God. I'm forever grateful.
That's got to be the hardest thing, to be waiting there to see,
Yeah.
that judge reading that.
It was definitely like one of the hardest years of my life, overall, like going through this and personal stuff. It's just like, I can relate. I know there's millions of people out there that can relate to like those months or those years when it just seems like everything is just going wrong. It's just like everything beyond what the people know about, all of the extra stuff that people don't even know about, or people that are close to you don't even know about. And it just, sometimes it just feels like, you want to give up, but you got people that you're blessed to have people around you that, tell you to keep going and hold your head up, and it's going to be all right. Keep your faith strong. That's what I did. And I'm just, it's been a very learning experience. It's been a life-changing experience.
That was in 2001. 2001. Diddy sharing like what his experience was when he was waiting to hear the verdict from the jury.
The following documentary contains allegations in investigative journalism based on publicly available information.
I'm not even sure what that
All claims that involve illegal activity are alleged, and viewers are advised to form their own opinions. Welcome to Surviving Diddy, the Boule Bad Boy, Part 2.
All right, so I have not watched this. I don't know what this is. So let me get back to sharing. We're going to look at the clip again when he was acquitted, when Johnny Cochran was his lawyer in 2001. Let's take another look at that throwback. Again, 2001. He was found not guilty, acquitted of all charges.
All over the world and sent me prayers and messages. Thank you for your prayers. You're giving me support. The people in New York, just when I'm walking in the streets, just telling me to keep my head up. And I'm just so grateful today. And my whole family. I'm just really right now, I'm just very emotional. I'm at really a loss. I'm just very emotional. I feel blessed. I'm just so, I mean, I'm gonna talk about all that later. Right now, I just want to go and be with my kids, and I'm just grateful.
What about Sean, Mr. Combs?
I'm just grateful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, sir. We love you, sir. We love you. I see you, baby. Thank you. Thank you, baby.
I wonder what Johnny Cochran, if he were still alive today, I wonder what would he think about the situation that Diddy's in right now. Not what he would say publicly, having been one of the primary lawyers to get Diddy off in 2001, but just what would he think? What would he think about what he saw today after Diddy dodged that bullet in 2001? To see that he has found himself in this situation in 2025. I wonder what would Johnny Cochran think?
What was the key?
I got something to say if you want to hear it.
Speak, speak.
I want you to listen carefully because I want you all to note this. It's quite customary when people win the Super Bowl, they're on television saying they're going to Disneyland. Well, I feel like I just won the Super Bowl. This quarterback is going right to synagogue to thank God. Thank you very much. I love you all.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben.
Did
Yes.
you get that?
That's got it. Well, I think in this case, we basically proved John Combs' innocence. I love Ben Brafman. He's the greatest. He's the greatest. I think we've actually proved his innocence. I think Sean Combs taking the stand. I think we made some strong decisions. I think.
And that is definitely one of the big differences with this trial, because Diddy didn't go anywhere near the witness stand in this trial. And he did take the stand when he was acquitted in 2001.
We made the right decision not calling Jennifer, that it was on Sean's back. He did the right thing. He testified. He withstood the cross-examination, and he prevailed. I just want to say that this is a great, exhilarating victory for Sean Combs. It's a victory really for all of us because he was wrongly accused. These last 14 months have been very, very tough. And that courtroom today, the pressure was unbearable through all those verdicts to finally get to his not guilties. 5 not guilties that'll resound and ring in our ears forever. So we thank God. And I want to say for Ben Brafman and I and Andrea Zellin, it was an honor and a privilege to represent Sean Combs. Very good.
So back in 2001, they were very celebratory. The lawyers were very celebratory. Diddy, his mom, were very celebratory. Diddy took the stand in 2001 in that case, and he was acquitted of all charges. Don't know if that's going to happen this time around.
No, we thought that we thought when they linked Jones with Mr. Combs that it would mean whatever one got, the other one would get, and the jury did just the right thing. And I'd like to praise this jury. They were fantastic. Thank you all for being fantastic. I'm going to head back to California. I'm not going to Disneyland. I'm going home to California. Thank you, guys. Take care. See ya.
What about Sean? His spirits, he's of course disappointed with. He's certainly disappointed with the jury's decision with respect to many of the counts. We are pleased that the jury found him not guilty of some of the top counts. We are disappointed, though, of course, with their verdict with respect to the reckless assault in the first degree. But he's holding his head up. And he's going to stay strong in his faith and his conviction. And we recognize that these things happen, and hopefully everything will still work out.
So it's interesting to see him talk about Sean here, because most of us understand, or so the thought has been that Sean basically took the fall for Diddy. Sean spent almost 10 years in prison. They were on trial together. Diddy had Johnny Cochran and some other high-priced lawyer, I'm sure. Sean had these guys. I'm not even sure who these guys are. I don't think I've even ever seen them. Not to say they're not reputable. I just don't recall seeing them or really knowing who they were, especially when it was going on. But Sean got the short end of the stick. Sean got the short end of the stick, went to prison again for almost 10 years. Sean will tell you that he took the fall. People who were actually shot that night at the club, especially that one lady who was shot in the face, she has been adamant from day one about who shot her, and she said it was not Sean. She said that it was Diddy who did it. She's been saying that for years. So I don't know, but yeah, this was you saw Diddy's lawyers before you see Sean lawyers here, and the mood, of course, is totally different. Diddy's lawyers are celebratory. Diddy's celebratory. They're thanking God and life changing and ooh hoo hoo, all the celebration. I'm going to Disneyland. I'm not going to Disneyland. I'm just going to California. Ain't God good? All of that. Okay, and then we have Sean's lawyers come out and they're like, of course, totally opposite, because Sean is going to prison.
No, he took no fall for no one else. The realities were the charges were somewhat different between Shine and Puffy Combs. It was a different case. They happened to be tried together. The facts were entirely different. With relation to the exoneration of the attempted murder and the willful assault, that was a clear vindication of the occurrence. It happened simply because of a reckless situation. That we will deal with an appeal. And I know that's the usual cop-out of most convictions, but we will deal with that in its proper course.
But do you feel his loyalty to Mr. Combs cost him here in this case?
Not at all.
Murray, why not? He was there with Combs.
You know, I'm not going to second guess what occurred or what did not occur. The jury obviously found him not guilty of attempted murder and willful assault. The circumstances under which these acts occurred or did not occur have been decided. We will now test whether it's done legally or properly. Other than that, we don't know. We're not going to suggest and put blame on anyone else.
What did he say to you in the end?
We said a prayer together, and then we realized we had a few things still to take care of. That was about it.
But he looks like he's facing some heavy prison time, Murray. What's the fair estimate?
Well, interestingly enough, we had spoken about possible disposition before the case was tried. And we believe, but in getting exonerated of the top counts, to change the position that he could possibly be sentenced to. I think he may have, hopefully, may have benefited.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and even just listening to Sean's lawyers, you know, there's also been things that have been said since all of this went down in 2001 about how Sean actually felt about the lawyers that were provided to him. I can't recall if Diddy's team paid for his lawyers or not. At any rate, Sean made it quite clear that how all of that worked out, it was set up to not work out in his favor, and that he felt as if he definitely took the fall, even though his lawyer here, the one with the glasses, is saying that he didn't. Why would his lawyer even say that? It makes you wonder, but nevertheless, Sean definitely felt like he took the fall.
Yes.
Is Shine remanded to the court?
Yes. Yes. Can we find out if we're done or not? Can you find out?
So I think they are done. Yeah, they're breaking up. But yeah, so Sean, on that day in 2001, Sean stayed behind. He went to prison for almost 10 years. Diddy got to go off and live his best life. And 24 years later, he's here. He's here. So the jury has started deliberations in the Combs trial. The jurors are now heading to the jury room to begin deliberations. The judge told the alternates they may say goodbye to their fellow jurors as long as they do not discuss the case. The judge praises the prosecutors and defense attorneys for an exceptionally tried case. After sending the jury out to begin the deliberations, the judge addressed the lawyers in the Combs trial, praising both prosecutors and the defense for great lawyering. The case was really exceptionally tried by both sides in this case, the judge told the attorneys. He said that he appreciated both sides' cooperation throughout the trial. He also commended the parties for allowing younger attorneys to deal with substantive issues in the case. And yes, there you have it, y'all. So the jury is now deliberating. We are truly on verdict watch now. We are truly on verdict watch. And just as a reminder of what they will be considering, they will be considering 5 counts. The first count is the RICO charge, racketeering conspiracy. Then there's 2 s-trafficking charges. And then there's 2 transportation for the oldest profession in the world charges. And both where there are 2 s-trafficking, is one for Cassie, one for Jane. 2 transportation for oldest profession in the world. It's 1 for Cassie and 1 for Jane. The RICO charge is the one that has the 8 predicate acts under it, in which if the jurors believe that there was a criminal enterprise, they would then check 2 of those predicate acts. Either they have to identify at least 2 of those predicate acts as him being guilty of those 2 things to support a conviction for RICO. So we'll see now how long it's going to take. The thought is that the shorter amount of time taken by the jury, the more likely that they're coming back with a guilty verdict. And if they're taking a longer amount of time, the wisdom is that normally that it's good for the defendant. We'll see how all of that shakes out at this point with this case. But yeah, we're here now. This is just, this is one of those moments where you think about everything you heard. One, Diddy was living a wild life. Can we all agree to that? Can we all agree that he was living a wild life? Right? Now, when that wild life takes a turn towards illegal activity, and you are used to being able to pay your way out of, or sometimes people just drop charges or whatever, you're used to that being the case, and now that's not happening. He is probably feeling as if maybe that he's experiencing something he's never experienced before. And that first probably started resonating with him when he thought he was going to turn himself in and then get out on bail. And you see, that didn't happen. They refused bail no matter what he put up. If it was legal to put up your children, if he had put up his children, they would have told him no on that too. They were determined he was not going to get out on bail. So we are officially at jury watch at this point. We will check back in once we hear something. I doubt we're going to hear anything today. If the jury comes back with a decision today, then I'm going to automatically assume, if we hear within the next hour or so that the jury has a verdict, I'm going to assume the worst or the best, depending on how you feel about this case, right? But I'm definitely going to assume that he's been found guilty of all charges if they come back like within the next hour. So thank you for stopping by. Thank you for supporting my channel. I appreciate your support. Please thumbs up the video, drop a comment to share what your thoughts are on this case. Share your thoughts on some of the old footage we viewed from 2001 where he was previously acquitted, and how he talked about how stressful it was during this time in 2001. If you are not a subscriber to the channel, please consider subscribing. I would appreciate your support. And until the next time, bye y'all.